It didn't start with cruelty, and that's what made it so easy to ignore. There was no sudden shift, no dramatic argument, no clear signal that something was wrong. It began quietly, disguised as busyness, as life getting in the way. Calls went unanswered for longer than usual. Messages felt shorter. I told myself this was normal, that closeness didn't mean constant availability. At first, I defended them even in my own mind. Everyone has phases. Everyone gets overwhelmed. I reminded myself that people don't owe constant access to their time. Still, a small discomfort began to form, subtle but persistent. It was the kind of feeling you notice only when you're alone, when excuses stop sounding convincing. Then came the missed calls that were never returned. Not intentionally ignored, just forgotten, they said. I tried not to keep count, but my body noticed even when my mind tried not to. Each missed connection chipped away at something I couldn't yet name. I told myself I was being sensitive. I told myself not to overthink. Inside jokes began appearing in conversations, jokes I didn't understand, stories I hadn't been part of. They laughed about moments I hadn't witnessed, experiences I hadn't shared. I smiled along, pretending it didn't sting. Friendships evolve, I told myself. Circles expand. There's room for everyone. But there's a difference between expansion and exclusion. I started to feel like a guest in a space that once felt like home. The ease between us shifted. Conversations lost their depth. The pauses grew longer. I noticed how often I was the one reaching out, initiating, holding the connection together. Then came the secrets. Not theirs, mine. Personal details I had shared in confidence began appearing casually in conversations where I wasn't present. I would hear about them later, secondhand, mentioned lightly, as if they were common knowledge. Each time, my stomach dropped. I tried to convince myself it wasn't intentional. Maybe they didn't realize the weight of those words. Maybe they assumed I wouldn't mind. But trust isn't just about what you say. It's about what you protect. And I began to realize that what mattered to me wasn't being guarded with the same care. The discomfort grew steadily. Undeniable now. It followed me into quiet moments, into sleep, into conversations with others. I replayed interactions in my head, searching for reassurance. I wondered if I had changed, if I was the one pulling away without noticing. I decided the solution was honesty. If something felt off, it was my responsibility to address it. So I spoke gently, carefully choosing words that wouldn't sound accusing. I expressed how I felt, not what I suspected. I believed communication could fix anything if handled with enough care. They listened, nodded, reassured me. They told me I mattered, that nothing had changed, that I was imagining distance that didn't exist. Their words were convincing enough to quiet my concerns, at least temporarily. I wanted to believe them. Belief felt easier than doubt, so I doubled down on patience. I gave more space. I asked fewer questions. I adjusted my expectations. I told myself that strong friendships don't demand constant reassurance. I practiced understanding, even when it hurt. I believed effort, when rooted in love, could save anything. Self-blame crept in quietly. I wondered if I was too needy, too emotional, too attached. I questioned whether my expectations were unfair. Maybe I was asking for more than anyone could give. That narrative felt safer than admitting I was being hurt. The breaking point didn't arrive with warning. It came suddenly, but only because I had ignored the slow buildup beneath it. A lie surfaced unexpectedly, small but undeniable. Something they had denied before appeared clearly, backed by proof I couldn't ignore. When I confronted them again, hoping for honesty this time, another lie followed. Then another. Each revelation felt heavier than the last. It wasn't just the dishonesty. It was the ease with which it came, the realization that deception had become normal. I started noticing patterns I had previously excused, inconsistencies in stories, shifts in tone, defensiveness where there had once been openness. The clarity was painful. What I had been protecting was already gone. I realized I had been defended in public but dismantled in private. In front of others, they spoke of loyalty and closeness. Behind my back, my words were questioned, my feelings minimized, my character quietly reshaped. That duality cut deeper than any single lie. The confrontation that followed wasn't explosive. It was calm, almost clinical. I laid out what I knew, what I felt, what I needed. I expected remorse, or at least acknowledgement. Instead, I was met with denial so firm it made me doubt my own reality. That denial hurt more than the truth ever could have. Being told I was mistaken, dramatic, or misunderstanding things I had clear evidence of felt like emotional erasure. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was gaslighting. The fallout was quiet but devastating. There was no public drama, no clear ending, just distance that solidified overnight. Messages stopped. Invitations disappeared. Silence replaced familiarity. And in that silence, the loss finally settled in. Mutual friends noticed the shift before I spoke about it. Some asked questions carefully. Others avoided the topic entirely. Slowly, sides formed without discussion. Not out of malice, but convenience. People chose comfort over complexity. I didn't blame them, but it still hurt. Watching relationships change without explanation added another layer of grief. Spaces that once felt welcoming became uncomfortable. I learned how isolating betrayal can be when it disrupts an entire social ecosystem. My confidence collapsed in ways I hadn't expected. I questioned my perception constantly. I replayed events obsessively, wondering where I had gone wrong. Trusting my instincts felt dangerous now, as if they had failed me. Even my family noticed the change. They commented on my silence, my withdrawal. Laughter became rare. Joy felt muted. I was present physically, but distant emotionally. It was easier to retreat than to explain something that felt too complicated to put into words. Trust began to feel dangerous, not just with others, but within myself. I hesitated before sharing anything personal. Vulnerability felt like a risk I couldn't afford. I became careful, guarded, observant in ways that felt unnatural. Sleep became restless. My mind replayed conversations on a loop, searching for different outcomes. I imagined what I would say if I had another chance, knowing it wouldn't change anything. The lack of closure kept the wound open. Over time, I accepted that the friendship I was trying to save no longer existed. What remained was the aftermath, the emotional debris left behind. Accepting that truth hurt, but resisting it hurt more. I began the slow process of letting go, not just of the person, but of the version of the relationship I had believed in. That meant grieving without validation, healing without apology, and rebuilding trust without certainty. Looking back, I see how the story unfolded step by step, not as a sudden collapse, but as a gradual erosion. Understanding that doesn't make it easier, but it makes it clearer. And clarity, even when painful, the first step toward healing.